Aloha, everybody. This is Dave Wallace coming to you from my home here in Waihoa, Hawaii, and welcome to Monday Talk Story Time. I am enjoying sitting out here because just to my right we have a brand new gardenia that's just blooming, and the wind is coming this way and carrying this beautiful scent. And just in front of me, directed this way, that way, is a small little flower. That actually is Chinese like, and that fills the air with beautiful aromas. And welcome to my backyard. Uh, I'd like to invite you and come and sit down and talk story with me right here. Anyway, some of you may get that opportunity, okay? Anyway, um, before I get into talk story time, I'd like to share with you folks latest happening. Uh, like I said last week, we completed the first chapter in the first book, actually, in our Anna Blaze series. And right now, we're beginning the second book. And I just hired a writer for to help us develop this. And we're so far we're I'm very pleased with this new writer that we have, and so hopefully we can have her working with us and creating the rest of the stories. So all of these are my stories are basically talking about people who have extraordinary powers and who have to learn how to use these powers and hopefully do good with them. But there's a learning curve that comes with this and many challenges. So that's what the story is about. Anna Blaze, a young woman who has the ability to read people's minds, very clairvoyant, can plant, she can also plant images and sensations into another person's mind and influence them that way. And what makes her unique is that she also has the ability to jump from one point in time to another location. Not really time traveling, but sort of like teleporting herself. And that's what the storyline is about. And we're going to be following her adventures and, creating this series. The second series that I'm working on, and I'm kind of like deliberating whether I should write this myself or also have hire another writer to help me with this. But I'm calling this series Pacific Shape Shifters. And this is different from the shapeshifters that other people talk about. And most people are familiar with shapeshifters being werewolves, vampires, or associated with Native Americans. Well, Native Americans are not the only people that have that ability. Okay, and in fact, Polynesian lore and Hawaiian lore have stories about ancestors of ours who were able to do the same thing. And so I'm taking this tradition, family tradition, and I'm putting it into a story form. It's fiction again, but I'm going to have fun playing with this idea. And I hope I don't anger too many Polynesians or Hawaiians out there. Okay, but again, it's pure entertainment, all right? And that's the idea: writing entertaining books that can interest people, and hopefully that can we can do something about it. Okay, and this first shapeshifter story is about my own family, and it focuses on the puhi or the eel. Okay. Anyway, so that's something that I'm working on and creating. And for the ohana out there that's pulling the hair and say, "No, Dave, why are you doing this? Relax. It's entertainment." Okay. So that's where I'm at so far. And there are other genres that my wife and I are looking at. And Not all of the books are going to appear under my name. I'm going to be using pen names. And I'm still inviting, I'm looking for a group of people that are willing to uh, read my stories in advance before I release it so that they can write a critique about the book and what they enjoyed about it. So, and use those critiques and post it on Amazon. And these are people that are important to me. And so you'll have an early release of all of my books as long as you agree to write a comment or in a commentary about the book itself. All right, so that's what I'm looking for, and I'm still looking for people like that. And leave a note here, or you can contact me on Facebook under Kahu Dave. Okay. Now, today's talk story, I wanted to spend time uh, kind of like going over something that's been coming up more and more recently, especially as we getting out of the pandemic and I'm seeing more people, and I'm not afraid to go out. I'm fully vaxxed, and so I'm not afraid to go out, and I can start teaching again. So I'm going to be offering my classes in Haki'i healing methodology, and it's a three classes actually, and take you from the beginning, intermediate, and advanced steps of Haki healing. And I know some of you heard heard this before, but for some of you who are hearing the term Haki for the first time, um, Haki is a combination of two Hawaiian words. Ha is the breath of life. In fact, if you breathe in and exhale through your nose, the breath coming out of your nose when you exhale contains life. So that's the ha that you have. Ki'i is an image, okay? An image or a picture. Now, haki'i is a combination of remote viewing and Reiki, okay? And the origins of this goes back to about 1990 when I was coming home from my teaching position at Kailo Intermediate, and um, I was teaching Hawaiian history during that time, and I started reading up and noticing that a lot of the people that I was studying and the books that I was looking at, it sounded familiar. And when I opened up my genealogy and I started looking at my genealogy, many of these people came up in my genealogy, and I go, oh wow, I kind of like forgot about my ancestry and who they were and the type of people I come from. And it fascinated me, and I wanted to learn more. And in fact, the more I studied, the more I wanted to become like my ancestors. So one day on my way home from teaching, I stopped off at the Pali Lookout, and I walked, and I found a secluded place, and I prayed, and I asked my ancestors to show me how I could become like them. And one of the first dreams I had following that was an ancestor came to me in my dreams, and it says, boy, look for this. He showed me hands. And for the longest time, after I woke up, I scratched my head, and in fact, I talked to several people about the meaning of this dream. What does this mean? And I thought it meant going to church where they're raising their hands, and so I started exploring and searching. What does this dream mean? And finally, one day when I was looking through the old paper penny saver, I was flipping through it, and all of a sudden I saw a small print ad with two hands coming like this, just like that. And uh, it captioned Reiki. There was going to be a Reiki demonstration, and if I wanted to know what Reiki was, I needed to go to this one place. And I took down the address, and it says, "Hands must be something." Now, at that time, my right shoulder was frozen. And in fact, I used to throw a lot. When I was living up in the mainland, I was playing a lot of softball, and I was working out. And when I finally came back home, I stopped doing that for a while, and boom, my shoulder, my right shoulder, got frozen. I couldn't even, I couldn't even scratch my ear with my right hand. My right hand was limited, and I had problems writing things on the board in a classroom because I couldn't raise my hand, and so it was really painful. So I read up what Reiki was and found out it was a healing modality using hands. And it says, okay, maybe, this dream that I had, showing hands, being healing, let's go find out. So I went to the demonstration, and there's a Reiki Master. Her name is Maureen O'Shaughnessy, something like that. Anyway, and she asked for volunteers. And I said, okay, I go. I jump up, and I went, and I sat down on a chair, and she put her hands on the back of my neck. And then I'm sitting over there, and she's talking and explaining what Reiki is and what to expect. And for me, I was expecting, lights and, this big power surge running through me. None of that happened. And I'm sitting over there, and finally she tapped my back and says, "Oh, you done?" And I look at her. I didn't feel anything. There's nothing going on in me. So I was kind of disappointed. So I stood up and I walked back to my seat, and I sat there. And as soon as I sat down, and I think, this Reiki stuff is junk. And right then and stuff, I decided to move and rotate my shoulder. And like how when you pop the bubbles in the bubble wraps that they send, in your shipment container, that's how my shoulder sounded. It sounded like I was crunching bubble wraps, and everything was going, and I go, oh. And so I moved it again, and again it made that nasty crunchy. In fact, the guy sitting next to me says, "Whoa, what's happening?" And I said, "I don't know, but wow." By just moving my shoulder like this, I could finally move my shoulder. It wasn't frozen anymore. So I stood up and I went outside. I excused myself from the meeting, and I went outside, and I was in um, the hallway of this place where we were meeting, and I started moving my arm. And I put my hand up against the wall, and I could walk my fingers all the way up where I had my arm fully extended out. And I go, that happened. And this lady took only less than 3 minutes to unfreeze my arm. And so as I moved, there was no pain, but a lot of noise going on. I know I was busting up something inside here. And so I wanted to test my arm, and I started moving my arm like I was throwing something. And so I wanted to test out if my arm could actually throw, because I think that's what happened. I had stopped playing softball. And so I looked around for something to throw, and the only thing I could find was a bottle of water that was about 3/4 away full, small bottle. And so I grabbed it, like a football, and I looked out in a parking lot, and there was an empty space, and I just backed up and I cocked my arm and I let it rip, and that bottle came flying out of my hand like I had my full power to throw, and it felt so good. And it's something that I could not do for almost 2 years. I was frozen like that. As soon as I got through throwing the bottle, I came back inside the presentation, and I told the presenter, the Reiki Master, sign me up. So that was the beginning of my trek into Reiki. And as I began to learn about Reiki and the idea of the interconnected universe, how we're connected to everything in our environment, the tree, the air, the rocks, the stones, I sat back and I said, "This sounds Hawaiian," you know. And so I understood why my ancestors directed me to Reiki, because in that same dream they says, "You know what, boy? There's not too many people that can teach you what you need to learn. There's hints, there's things that come close to it, but not exactly. It's just that you need to learn these things, and after you learn that, you infuse it with what we're going to show you." So I became a Reiki master, and that was my first step in creating haki. So I got the ha part, how to manage, how to read energy, and how to direct healing energy anywhere I want. And after becoming a Reiki master, I began to ask, my ancestors if there was anything else that I needed to learn. And one night I was dreaming, and I was taken into a lele, and this is a tower in a heiau that it tall poles and tapa wrapped around. And I was taken inside to one of the leles. And when I went into the lele, there was a man laying on a mat, and another Hawaiian man talking to him. The person that was laying down on a mat was sleeping, but he was talking at the same time. So it seemed like he was in a hypnotic state, or an altered mind. And the person that was awake was asking him questions regarding what he was seeing inside his dream. And from listening and trying to hear what they're conversing, they're speaking in Hawaiian, but I could kind of like pick up on um, the messages mentally. And it was just like me watching their dream and participating in this as an observer. And so basically, the man that was sleeping had projected himself into the future. And in this future, he was watching a battle, and the movement of soldiers. And as the soldiers were moving from different parts, he would report it, and the man listening to it would recite it, and he had to memorize that. Because you remember, Hawaiians didn't have uh, writing or anything. Anything they needed to remember, they had to quickly put it in their mind and remember what was going on. So I could tell it was something important and something that needed to be done. And finally, after a few minutes, and they got the information what they wanted, the man that was sleeping woke up, and he smiled, and he asked me if I understood what I was seeing. And he touched me right over here. He says, "Remember." Boom. And it took me a long time, several months, to figure out, what this dream meant. And finally, one night, at that time, I was working part time down at the Honolulu airport, and as a law enforcement officer at the gates. But I was a patrol officer, so I spent a lot of time in my car. And somebody before work, I got onto work. It's always turn it to a channel that had Art Bell, and Art Bell, he's a predecessor of George Norrie, and he's one night he was talking to this man who was a remote viewer. And as I started listening to the show, at first I was going to ask, what is this? And but the more he talked, he started describing the process that I had seen in my dream, where a person would be sleeping, and that would be a viewer, and the person that would be awake and stuff would be telling the viewer where to move and how to go. That would be a monitor. So this is a monitored remote viewing session, and I was kind of like chuckling to myself. It says, "Oh, this is something my ancestors were doing way before the term remote viewing, was invented, was even thought about." So right there, I knew my ancestors were saying, "Learn how to remote view." And as soon as I started doing remote viewing, I said, "Oh, is this it? Is this it?" Because I could do this from the time I was a kid. Okay. In fact, one of the first things I needed to do as a remote viewer, I had to guess. I talked my wife. Actually, I jumping over the story, but to find out what remote viewing was, I went to the bookstore and I bought a book um, written by Russell Targ, and inside there he described a process on how to set up a remote viewing session, and it's just a quick using natural remote viewing. And so I read it, and it says, "Well, get a friend or an associate to put something hidden in an envelope or a box, and after they hide it, don't tell you what's in there, but you sit down and you focus on your box and you project your mind into the point in time where the box is open and the object is revealed to you." So I did that. I came home and volunteered my wife, and she was really happy to help me, and she got a box and put an object inside. And when I came home from work, she was ready, and I took out my pad and I started focusing on the box, and I saw something kind of like shaped like this, pointing this way. Okay, and it was cone shaped, and it had pokies on the side, um, just like points. And I drew that, and I thought it was one of her hair combs. But finally, when we opened up the box, it was a white Crown Victoria conch. And right when I saw that, and I look at my sketch and I look at that, it says, "Yeah, that's exactly what I saw." And but it wasn't something that a new skill, but this is something I could do when I was 5 years old after my accident. And I came home from the hospital. I could see things inside the Christmas boxes, presents that was given to me. I just look at it, as ask myself what's in here, and boom, an image would jump up to me and say, well, "This is clothes, this is books, whatever." And it was accurate, very accurate in describing what was hidden away as a little kid. So this is something that was, I could do from the time I was little, but I forgot how to do it. And through remote viewing and getting a process, learning the process, it became more usable for me and something that I can do on demand. So, Reiki, using the high energy and recognizing energy, and now you have remote viewing where you can see. And as a healer, especially when I started working as a Reiki Master, anytime I put my hands on a person and stuff, I could feel the energy, and I began to get imagery of what was going on inside that person. However, with the training that I received from remote viewing, now my pictures were much more clear. And since I began focusing on the human body, I started going on the internet and looking up. Okay, if I'm working on somebody's heart, what is how does the a healthy heart look like? What does a healthy heart valve looks like? How does the muscle supposed to appear? How does the joint supposed to appear? And this is how I trained myself to become a medical intuitive. And once I began to putting these things together, and my abilities started to take shape, I began helping other people as a medical intuitive. And so that's the type of training that I'm offering in my hockey classes. In fact, 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be giving my first hockey class in a while, since the in about a year. Okay, so if anyone wants to, sign up for the class, you can track me down here, and I can send you the link, and join the other students that I have. And these classes are on demand because I'm retired and my time is flexible. So, and a lot of classes are being held over Zoom. And what you'll be getting for the classes, I'll send you a workbook so that you can read up on uh, the concepts. And during the class, it's going to be hands-on and showing you, displaying how to use the information that I'm going to be teaching you. So that's Haki, okay? And again, Ha, the breath of life and the energy, the living energy in human beings, and Ki, the ability to see inside what's happening with the high energy. And many times when a person is not feeling well, there's a drain in the energy or you can sense that. Um, the the energy field around the person is off, and when a person is sick, normally they draw energy from places that have a lot. So, which is one reason why when I go to Costco and there's sick people, older people, walking around, I can feel, I can feel the draw on my energy. Okay. Anyway, so this is hockey discussion, and again, if you're interested, you can take a look on my website, intuitiveinsightshawaii.com, and you'll have more information on that. Okay, and looks like the Powerball is going to be climbing up, so probably by next week I'll be posting the Powerball lottery numbers again. But until next time, this is Dave Wallace from Waihawa, Hawaii, wishing you well and aloha.